Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Tuesday. I hope the week is going well, whether you're watching or listening to this around the world. What a strange Tuesday it is today. Got a really weird feeling about it, hasn't it? Because of what's to come later on this evening at Spurs. Because the fact it's Spurs, because of all the build up to it, it's just a weird feeling. I don't even know if I'm going to watch. Are you going to watch? Let me know if you are going to watch in the comments below. I don't think I'm going to watch it. I have to say, like, a mate messaged me earlier and was like, we're going out and meeting some other mates in London. We're going to watch the game. Do you want to come? I was like, no, I don't really. I just don't want to watch it. I think I'm going to get too annoyed watching it. So I think I might change my mind, but I think I'm just going to watch something else. I'm going to hope that maybe my phone might start lighting up with some messages saying, oh my God, look what's happening. But I'm not expecting that to happen, I have to say. But I just don't feel like I want to watch it. It's going to be a weird game. And look, I know I'm going to talk about it a little bit later on in the show in terms of what Ange Postecoglou said ahead of the game, in terms of all the build up to it, you know, in terms of what Spurs might well do. So I will discuss that a little bit later on in the game. But it's just a weird feeling today. It really, really is, waiting for this game to get underway. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about last night's football. We'll talk a bit about Arsenal women. There's some really big news around Arsenal women in the last 24 hours or so. We'll certainly talk about that. I've got some questions and comments from you guys as well. And we'll look at what Pep Guardiola has been speaking about in the build-up to tonight's game as well. But I didn't want to focus it all on that game tonight. I wanted to start with some sort of discussing Arsenal. And there's a question that I had sent in from one of you guys. It was from Dasum. I think that's how you pronounce the first bit of the name, Desu. Apologies if I got that wrong. Who's sent in a message from India? It says, hi, Charles. Thanks for sharing your thoughts consistently for the last 3 or 4 years, conveying love from your content from India. Thank you very much. So my thoughts are more revolving around Mikel's contract situation, having only 1 year left. After all the progress made in the last few years, we cannot afford to see anything other than Mikel extending his contract. Please share your views on this. And I thought, in a quiet day, and today is pretty quiet Arsenal news-wise, there's not much going on in terms of the men's team. Obviously, there's big news about the women, which we will discuss. But I thought this would be a good talking point for today's show. Because obviously there is a big, no, I wouldn't say elephant in the room. I don't think it's like that, because I'm quite calm about the situation. I agree with you here. Look, it's a key thing for Arsenal. They have to get Mikel Arteta's contract signed up. He has to extend it. It'd be an absolute body blow for the club should something end up happening and Mikel not end up staying long term because of what's going on there, what the progress that's being made. And look, I know there's some people who don't still somehow get or like what Mikel's doing at the club, who base everything on trophies at the moment, and each to your own in your opinion. But I struggle to see how any Arsenal fans can't look at what's being done at the moment at the club, the progress that has been made, the standards that are being set, and not think that Arteta is a man to continue with that, to continue closing the gap on Manchester City and to bring the best trophies and rewards to Arsenal. Like I said, each to their own opinion, but I struggle to see how anyone can want change at this point in time. And anyway, look, I certainly don't think the people in power at the club who will be dishing out contracts will see any need for change. And I don't see Mikel looking elsewhere right now. So even though the contract is ticking down a bit, and like you say, he will have a year left at the end of this season, I don't see a way that is not extended and that he does not commit for another 3 or 4 years at the very least. I think it's just a matter of time before it happens. I haven't heard about contract talks, but I'm sure that discussions have been had behind the scenes. But everyone at the club will be thinking, look, let's just get this season finished and then we'll work all that out. Because it's going to be key for any transfers that Arsenal do this summer. All the people that they've been speaking to right now in the build up to the summer window opening, which will be a lot, every one of those and their agents will be asking the same thing. What's going on with the manager? He's got a year left on his contract. I would love to come and sign for you, but is the manager going to be here? That's just a given. That's what they will all be saying, because no one wants to sign for a club, sign for a manager, and then the manager to leave. We've seen it happen time and time again. And suddenly those new signings that have arrived are kind of left in no man's land, because a new manager comes in with different ideas, with fresh ideas, who doesn't fancy the new signings, and suddenly you're in trouble. Look at I don't know, I'm trying to pluck an example. Aubameyang, when he went to Chelsea, and Tuchel signed for Tuchel, and then like a week later, Tuchel got the boot, and Aubameyang's time at Chelsea just never took off like it probably would have done had Tuchel stayed in charge. So every single deal that they're doing this summer, all the players, all the agents will be asking that very question: when is Mikel signing his contract? Is Mikel signing his contract? And Arsenal will know that any sort of further delay as the summer goes on is that could lead to potential uncertainty and disruption. And they won't want that because they know they can't afford that to continue on the road that they're on, continue to try and close the gap on Manchester City, which they've done so well, but they still haven't done it completely. Then everyone needs to be going in the same direction. Everyone has to be certain about the direction the club is heading in. That's what Arsenal built their success on over the last few years. And that's why I'm absolutely sure as I can be when it comes to football anyway, because we all know you can never totally know what happens. But I'm as sure as I possibly can be that it will be a matter of time before a new contract is done. Everyone's happy with how things are going. Mikel's happy. The club are delighted, understandably, with how things are going. Obviously, the squad, or the vast majority of the squad, are very happy with what's going on at the moment. They're all being signed up to long-term contracts, and the manager will be the next one to do it. I'm absolutely convinced of it. So if that's a sort of answer to your question, there you go. Those are my views on the subject. I understand why it is a kind of there is a pressing need to get it done. And I'm sure the club absolutely understand that as well. And they'll just wait until this season's done, till they can focus, have a bit of downtime. Just, there's been so much focus, understandably, on the title race this season. That's where all of Arsenal's efforts have been sort of placed in the last, certainly Mikel's efforts have been placed in the last 6 months. And until that's done and dusted, until the season's, you can sort of look at the season in the rearview mirror, then I don't think they're going to really spend too much time talking about getting the contract sorted, because I just think behind the scenes they'd have probably all said, look, we're going to do it. It's going to be done. We'll just wait until the end of the season and get it wrapped up then, when we can really sort of sit down and sort of dot the I's and cross the T's and all those sort of cliches. So that's the answer to that one. But let me know your thoughts, you guys. If for some reason you don't think Mikel should be given a new contract, then I'd love to know your real thoughts behind it all and why. So you can put those in the comments below. But if you're like me and think that it's a foregone conclusion that it absolutely has to happen, then again, let me know in the comments below. Okay, moving on now. I just wanted to talk about these comments. I thought this was a bit rubbish from Guardiola in a way yesterday in his press conference. I think he just got annoyed a little bit because he was asked a question about, is it boring what Manchester City are doing? Win season after season. This will obviously be their 4th title when they get it wrapped up over the next week or so. Be their 4th title, something that's never been done in the Premier League era before. And he was asked, is it a bit boring? Is this turning into the Bundesliga type thing? And you could tell he got pretty spiky about that. And he came out with some comments. He said, look, before you know what it is, it was the money that won the titles. For that reason, why Manchester United should have won all the titles, all of them, and the 2nd, Chelsea, all the titles, and the 3rd, Arsenal, all the titles. They spend as much money in the last 5 years as us. They should be there. They are not there. Well, to be fair, I think Arsenal are there. They're just a point or so behind. For that reason, Girona shouldn't be in the Champions League. Leicester shouldn't win the Premier League years ago. Now it's boring. It's not boring. It's so difficult to be here again, and we want to win it. But to do something that this country no team has done before, you have to do something special, exceptional, I would say. It's not happened in the Premier League ever, and we have to do it this time. History is in front of us, and we have to accept that we have not done it. It is time to do it. Otherwise, Arsenal will be champions. And I kind of get what he's saying in a way. But I just think throwing the lines of everyone spent more money in the last 5 years, like that might be the case in terms of net spend, who spent what. But I think a lot of the clubs have had to spend what they spend. Like Arsenal have certainly had to spend since Mikel's come in. They've had to throw a load of money to try and close a gap that was just so huge because of the money City have spent since Abu Dhabi took over, and the squad that they've built, the wages that they still spend, which are far in excess of what Arsenal do. Clubs have had to spend that amount of money because of the gap that City have created between themselves and everyone else, because of their vast financial resources that they've had and the wages they've been able to spend and the way they've been able to sign someone, have it not work, sign another player for 60, 70 million, just like that. Like they've been able to do over the years. Yes, they've reined themselves in a bit in terms of doing that in recent years, but that's because of the level they've been able to bring themselves to through it. And everyone else is just left chasing their tails and trying to claw back. When you look at where Arsenal were, Arteta came in, the only way they were ever going to get to where they are now was by investing and investing well. And they've done that, and they've done it smartly. And so I just thought it was a bit rubbish when I saw Guardiola coming out with stuff like that. Although I did caveat it a little bit, but I think he was just a little bit wound up at at the questioning. And I'm not. We can all talk about 115 charges. They are huge, huge elephant in the room that need to be addressed, that have to be addressed. The longer it goes on, the worse it is for the integrity of the Premier League, 110%. And that always has to be mentioned hand in hand with what Manchester City are doing at the moment. And if they're found not guilty, which at the moment, they haven't been found guilty, and we know the rules, innocent until proven guilty. But if they are found guilty, then that has to be dealt with. If they're not, then fair enough. You have to carry on, whatever your thoughts on it are. But yeah, I did smile to myself when I saw Guardiola saying that sort of stuff. Okay, quickly moving on to the Arsenal women now. Really big news, historic news, in fact, coming out of Arsenal today. The Arsenal women now, their main home is going to be the Emirates Stadium from next season. They're going to play 11 home fixtures at least at the Emirates next season, 8 of them in the WSL, 3 of them in the Champions League group stages, if they get into the Champions League group stages, unlike this season. If they don't, then there'll be 11 WSL games played at the Emirates. If they do get through in the Champions League and they qualify for the knockout stages, and those games will be at the Emirates as well. So there'll be more than 11 games played, which is fantastic news. You look at the support base, you look at the work that they have done, you look at the sheer number of tickets that they've sold this season whenever they are at home. They are leading the way when it comes to generating a fan base for women's football in England. It's fantastic to see. Arsenal have always led the way when it comes to women's football in England, and they're doing so now. And this is huge news for them. Vivianne Miedema, their CEO for a short time anyway, his quote on the press release that came out says, "For almost 4 decades, we've been at the forefront of the women's game. We've recently seen extraordinary growth in supporters coming to the Emirates for games held here, which include 2 complete sellouts this season. The next step in our journey is to make the Emirates our main home for Arsenal women. We're looking forward to giving more supporters a chance to watch our women's team play. This is part of a collective drive across the club to take the women's game forward and support sustainable growth for the game so it can thrive in the long term." They deserve so much credit, Arsenal, for the way they have built and worked on the women's game when a lot of other clubs haven't, and the way they're progressing it forward. And this is just a fantastic move, And you look at what's going on in those home games at the Emirates and the support base. And it's almost like randomly a DHL guy came to my door the other day, and it was delivering a parcel, and I opened the door and he saw it was me. He's like, "Oh, I'm an Arsenal fan." And we were talking about the women's game, and he takes his daughter down to the ground for the women's game, and how different the mood is there, and how different experience it is there, and how fantastic it is. And I urge you to go down for the women's game if you haven't already, because it's a fantastic day to watch football. It's a different experience completely as well, but it's a really, really good one. And I think this is fantastic news for Arsenal. And credit to everyone involved. And also huge news coming out yesterday with news that Viv Miedema is going to be leaving at the end of the season. Obviously an absolute legend during her time at Arsenal. All-time record WSL goal scorer as well, of course. And it was announced yesterday that she is going to be leaving. I think it's 125 goals and 50 assists in 172 appearances for Miedema while she's at Arsenal. Just absolutely remarkable. But she will be leaving at the end of her contract. It was announced yesterday. She released a statement on her social media. If you haven't seen it yet, it's well worth a read. Edu said, "On behalf of everyone at the club, we thank Viv for her huge contribution towards the success of the team during her 7 years with us. Viv's goals and overall performances as an Arsenal player have been the highest quality. She's created so many wonderful moments for us over the years. We wish Viv and her family the best of health and happiness for the future." It's a bit of a surprise. Look, injury, obviously, she's really struggled since coming back from the cruise ship. She hasn't been able to hit the ground running. Some players do, some don't. We've looked at Beth Mead. She's handled it pretty well and been able to get back to her top level pretty quickly. Viv has struggled a lot more, and the injury has not helped her with that. But it's still a little bit of a surprise, maybe, that Arsenal took the decision that they did. It sounds like Manchester City could well be her next destination, so that's something to keep an eye on between now and the new season starting. But just a wonderful servant for Arsenal. Will go down as an absolute legend at the club. And best of luck to her with whatever she chooses next. Moving on to some of your questions and comments now. Certainly lots of you getting in touch ahead of tonight's game at Spurs. Postecoglou was talking about it yesterday, wasn't he? And he was saying, look, I don't get. He was talking about he was asked about the fans not wanting to win, and he was kind of picking on it a bit and saying, "What is that? Social media fans?" Is that 50%, 75%? Look, I'm in absolutely no doubt. And if Postecoglou really doesn't think that pretty much everyone in that stadium is not going to want Spurs to lose tonight, then he's got another thing coming, because they absolutely will. I'm completely convinced about it. There's going to be zero intensity in that ground. Looking at the ticket exchange, I saw people sort of posting screen grabs of it on social media today. There's so many tickets that people are trying to sell because they don't even want to go to the game. Now I've seen even Arsenal fans saying that they're going to buy them and go and support Spurs for the day. I'm not sure I can actually make myself do that. But yeah, look, I just can't see it. I don't see Tottenham doing anything to hurt City, and I don't think that's because of the fact they're not going to want Arsenal to win the title. I don't think the players are going to care about that. The players are going to want to get in the Champions League, and they've got a chance of getting in the Champions League. I just don't think they're good enough. I just don't see how Tottenham will hurt Manchester City. This City team are playing too well. There's too much at stake for it. Yes, they've got a bad record at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium when it comes to the Premier League. They obviously won there in the FA Cup this season. But I don't think that's going to count for anything tonight. I just think they're going to be far too good for a Tottenham team that is not great and is not going to be able to hurt them. And I think City are going to win very, very comfortably. John here has got in touch and says, Liverpool 3, Villa 3. Spurs go 2 points behind Villa for the Champions League spot if they beat City. Spurs have to keep ahead of Newcastle and Chelsea too, or they could lose their Europa League spot. Spurs have a lot to play for. They do, and that's what I'm saying. Look, the players will try their best. I'm sure of it. But I think when you're playing in an environment where your fans are not even wanting you to win the game and are probably going to be cheering for the other team, I think that makes it very, very hard to deliver. And elite sport is about such margins because everyone is a quality player. You know, those Tottenham players are top class players. City are better than them, but sometimes you can still bridge that gap because of your home support and because of, you know, just that extra little boost that your fans can get. And when your fans are not going to be cheering for you and not creating any sort of atmosphere in that stadium, those little margins are not going to go your way. And that little 1%, 2%, 3% that you can raise your game sometimes, which might help get you to a level to bridge that gap that exists between you and City, is just not going to be there. And so as much as I think the players will want it, Postecoglou will want it, I just don't think they're going to have enough to be able to get the job done today. Ash has got in touch and says, Charles, I understand why you have no confidence headed to tonight's game and your pessimism is justified by Spurs' performance of late, but I just cannot shake the opinion that this is the most likely game for City to drop points. Every club that has a team which has no right to take points from you, but it still does every year. It's the same reason we were all worried about United team that on paper were dreadful. In whatever shape Spurs have been, they still managed to make a game of it against City, especially at their stadium. The seasons City have proven they can be vulnerable if the game turns into a transition frenzy. Forest away, Newcastle away. And I think Spurs are the only team left who can actually attack them. It's win or no no Champions League for Ange, who outright called his fans serial losers for wanting City to roll them over. Anyway, if you need me, I'll be on top of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with my trumpet in hand at 8 p.m. shot. Postecoglou's comments did kind of make me laugh a bit yesterday because I have to admit, I don't blame the Spurs fans for how they feel today. I'd feel exactly the same, I think. Even if it meant Champions League qualification for Arsenal, I genuinely would take Arsenal finishing 5th and Spurs not winning the league for a season. I honestly would. And so I can understand how Spurs are feeling about it. And Spurs, when they were in the Champions League final against Liverpool, that was the most horrific night, one of the most horrific nights of my life. And I couldn't watch it. I couldn't bring myself to watch it. Just when they came back and beat Ajax 3-2 in the semi-final, I was in Valencia that night for the Arsenal Europa League semi-final. And I had to leave the pub and walk home on my own. I couldn't be around people. I was so devastated that Spurs had got through. And so I understand how their fans are feeling. I don't blame them tonight one little bit for it. That's what the rivalry is about. And, you know, Tottenham not being in the Champions League next season, I don't think it makes that much of a difference to them, really. It does to the club, it does to the finances. But I think for the fans, it's just slightly different. And they would not want Arsenal to win the title. And I wouldn't want Tottenham to win the title. So as much as Ange might hint that they're serial losers, as you say, there for wanting City to roll them over, I don't blame the Spurs fans, I have to say, in this one. Charlie says 9 points in the last 7 games. That's been Liverpool's form in the run-in. We were similar a year ago and were ridiculed, bantered and called bottle jobs. Why hasn't there been the same energy for Liverpool's late collapse? In fact, if we finish second with 89 points, there'll be more talk of us bottling it than Liverpool. Make it make sense, Charles. Yeah, I kind of agree. I think Liverpool have got off pretty lightly for how their season has petered out. I think in a way I think the Klopp thing probably comes into it, isn't it? It's the fact it's his send-off season and everyone just doesn't really want to put the boot in on Klopp in the final year. But they have let themselves down. They were in a brilliant position to win. It wasn't long ago that the Opta percentages were well in their favour, and they were absolutely considered favourites to win the title. And now they're going to finish third by a distance. The wheels have come off, and they are perhaps getting away with it a little bit. But to be honest, I don't really care. I thought Arsenal were very harshly labelled as bottlers last season, and I think sometimes you're just not good enough to get yourselves over the line. I think ultimately Arsenal last season weren't quite good enough to get over the line. Liverpool weren't good enough this season to get over the line. I don't think it's a case of bottling it, but that's how people are labelled, obviously. And Tristan says, Charles, if next year City get docked FFP points, would you take the Premier League title this year, or does it feel wrong? I wouldn't take it. I think they should just be scrapped. All the titles should be scrapped. I don't think they should be given to clubs historically. It's just, what's the point? Players don't get to celebrate it. Fans don't get to celebrate it. You just suddenly get another tick by your name in the honours box, and it just doesn't feel right. I just think all results should be expelled from excuse me, from the records. That's how I view it. I've said it before. I said it last season. I think so. I still have the same opinion myself. If that was indeed to happen, because the whole joy of winning a title is being able to lift that trophy and celebrate on the pitch with your fans. And if you're robbed of that and you're giving it 2 years later, what happens? The players aren't going to care. That medal's going to get slung in the. It's not going to feel like a real medal. It's going to be slung in a desk somewhere, and not really, because you didn't get your moment to really enjoy it and to celebrate it, to feel like you were actual winners. So no, not for me. I just null and void all the seasons, to be honest. That's my preference with it. But thank you very much for watching and for listening today, everyone. If you are going to watch the game today, then look, hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully we get what we're all hoping for in terms of the result. But we shall wait and see. Anyway, have a great day, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.